people who have to pay child support, and gentlemen. I'll leave this short and sweet, folks. Oft autistically regurgitated progressive axiom, including one that Stan Seder, the divorcee, often vomits forth, is the Republican voter suppression talking point, which is funny when they start talking about election deniers. It's funny that then they can go into an autistic spiel over Republican voter suppression. And any ID or any photo ID law or voter ID law that doesn't allow you to vote in the wrong precinct and doesn't allow you to, go without an ID and not even cast a provisional ballot is considered voter suppression. We saw this in 2016 where people were making excuses in Wisconsin that there was voter suppression going on, and of course Stacey Abrams is the Burger Queen of voter suppression claims, that is. So what I did, I examined numerous states, and the entire transcript will be posted at Rumble. So you can read all the data there, and there's a lot of it. I didn't include all the states because they needed to have a fairly strong voter ID law, and I needed to have about 3 election cycles for president and governor beforehand, and then 3 after, to have a good comparison. And some of them might say, well, you could just compare one. Well, here's why that doesn't work. That logic is bad. I'll use a sports analogy. Shaquille O'Neal was a terrible free throw shooter. Let's say after his 3rd year in the league, he hired a new free throw coach and had a new technique. And the first 5 games of the year, he shot 80% from the line. You'd be like, oh, wow, he's really solved it. No, you probably need to go a whole season. Then you'll figure out if he solved it. Because if he tails off and his percentage is not statistically higher, then you can't really say it improved. I mean, you could find an outlier in there and use that. So that's why that reasoning doesn't work. So I ended up using 5 states. I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'll let you go read it. 5 states that have really good data, had fairly tight voter ID laws, where I had at least 3 election cycles before and after the law, and I compared that with national data to see if their raw vote increases substantially went up or down after the voter ID law, compared that to the national data, and I even threw in New York, California, and Illinois. 3 states where, especially California and New York, where they do little to nothing to stop voter fraud. In fact, it is encouraged in New York City especially, and California, where there's a lot of that going on. There's no... put it this way, it wouldn't happen in Iowa. I'll give you an example of Iowa. They probably think Iowa's a tight voter ID law. In fact, we had to go to the Supreme Court just to get our photo ID law for voting to go through. The Democrats fought that. The Democrats want you to be able to vote in the wrong precinct. They want you to everybody to vote by mail and counting ballots a week after the election and voting by mail for 3 months before the election. It's ridiculous. Now in Iowa, if you walk into a precinct, mine said photo ID required. If you don't bring your ID, you have to sign an affidavit saying you are who you say you are, or an election official can vouch for you. Now, if it turns out you lie on that affidavit, that's a felony. So I'm going to write my legislator, see if we can't get that shored up a little bit more and require an ID. And if you don't have one, use cast a provisional ballot. But anyways, long story short, and all that data, I found out there's no data supporting the Republican voter suppression unless you think black people are too stupid to get an ID, which I think Democrats do believe that. So basically, in a nutshell, there is no proof for that voter suppression talking point. Like I said, unless you think black people are too stupid to get an ID. And usually, when the Democrats, especially when they lose an election, they start screeching because they are election deniers. And the divorcee Stan Seder, the failed talk show host, failed husband, failed comedian, and failed actress, is also a purveyor of the fake Republican voter suppression talking point. He has a lot of free time to sit on his fat ass, especially since he's not married now. He doesn't have to worry about his wife yelling at him for it, and he spends a lot of time vegetating on Twitter. He is a social media vegetable, and you spend too much time on social media, and that is a mental disorder that will damage you. And I think it's damaged Stan a lot, even worse than he was already damaged. But anyway, like I said, no proof to that. Go read the data. I know I'll probably get a couple comments from some autistics that have no channel comments, no videos, no nothing. And I don't bother debating those people because I used to do that. They'd just close the account and get a new one anyway, so I don't bother with that. But so if you see Democrats saying that, when you look at long strands of data, not really true, especially when you compare it to New York, California, and Illinois. And like I said, a lot of data, and it's not a Stan would do like, I'll do a 5-minute video. I'll do a 5-minute video disproving you. No, there's talking points that fit on the back of a business card really don't impress me much. So enjoy and pass it on.